This week we're going to work on improvements to the swamp biome because it kind of looked pretty unfinished before. I took some time to experiment with the water effects, added a bit more foliage, but also did quite a bit of work on the build system. As I finally caved and bought myself an Apple developer license, it's been a long time in the making. So I've now managed to get macOS build support working in the cloud, and iOS support is mostly there. Yeah, the swamp. Oh, and the game crashed. Oops. It does that sometimes. So, let's start with the changes to the swamp region. Pretty much the main problem with it was that when it was left last week, it was absolutely gross. It really didn't fit the scene at all, and it just kind of needed to drink some paint and just look a bit better. Or, you know, whatever you're supposed to do with paint. I mean, I don't know, I'm a programmer. The first thing I changed was being able to specify a colour for the water. So remember, the way the scene is drawn is I generate a texture using the map gen, which contains all of the colours to draw to the actual scene. Then the water just gets rendered underneath the land and it all looks lovely. So basically, if I wanted to change the colour of one specific part of the water, then I would need a way to change the texture. I added a new piece of functionality to my biome logic, which is able to call a function for a specific biome, which just returns a colour value at the end. I call this when I'm generating the texture, and then biomes can essentially just draw whatever they want. With my colours now in place, I really wanted to try and get some plants in the water. Actually, placing the plants in the water wasn't too difficult. I just had to do a bit of logic to check the altitude so I could tell that the area of water was actually water before I placed things. The problem was, it just didn't really look very natural. The plants were sort of strewn all over the place, whereas for like an actual bulrush, they would only really be by the edge of the water. And I kind of spent a while figuring out how to solve that. In the end, the solution was to calculate the distance from the edge for each body of water. So exactly the same method as what I used to calculate distances for regions. And actually this turned out to be a really good idea, as it had loads of applications just beside what I was going to do with the placement. Although it did make the distance on the debug map look really confusing. Once I had that value, I was able to incorporate it into my placement logic, so the weeds could be placed only near the sides of the water. As well as that, this also allowed me to think about some plants which could be placed only in the deeper sections of the water, like these lily pads that I ended up making. The deeper water requirements also mean that you won't get them in the smaller pond sections like this, and that variety does actually make the whole scene just seem way more natural. The final thing I was able to do with the new distance logic was alter the water texture based on this new distance. So using my texture biome thing from before, I can just read the distance and modify the final colour without too much effort at all. This ended up giving me a way nicer edge to the pools of water in the swamp, and it just looks way different now. So the old version looks like this, and the new version looks like this, plus a few extra trees that I was kind of experimenting with. I also made it possible to prevent the water animation from taking place on certain parts of the water mesh. The wave animation from before really made no sense for a swamp, and also, to be honest, I'd just like to tone it down anyway. The main problem with this was that the data would have to be packed into the water mesh itself. So last week I spent ages trying to generate the mesh on the CPU. Finally though, this week I saw some of the benefits of that, as I was able to specify certain parts of the mesh to not contain any animations. And that's not to say it wasn't massively fiddly, but we got there in the end. Now, alongside those changes to the swamp, something I was working along on the side was getting proper Apple builds in place. I finally got around to buying an Apple developer license, so I can actually start to sign my debug builds. It is kind of annoying that you had to buy one of those things anyway, but whatever. So the main reason I wanted to get one of those things was because I wanted to be able to properly install my CI/CD builds from my GitHub cloud thing to my iPhone, because I do actually use an iPhone on the day-to-day. Ow. I whacked my knee with my phone then. That kind of hurt. Kind of wanted to be able to do things like just crack the game open at any given opportunity, but one of the main problems with the Apple ecosystem is that it's how do you say it? You can't get in. They make it very hard. You got to pay the troll toll, shall we say. And the thing was that the mobile build for the game had kind of slipped off a bit, just as a result of the fact that I wasn't really able to play it very often. So one of the things I have that is super useful with my Steam Deck is I've just got a script on it that I can run, and it will download the latest build from the GitHub pipeline and just run it. And that's amazing. And you know, chef's kiss to Steve Gaben or whatever he's called. Gabe Newell, that's it. And it's just so amazing if you're a developer that you can do that sort of thing. And they make it really difficult if you've got an iPhone to do that sort of thing. Now, you can do it with an Android phone. The problem with Android phones is that they are all universally fucking shit. This isn't even a hot take. They're all terrible. I actually, I used to work on like embedded Android devices. So I used to develop like Android operating systems. And like the entire ecosystem is a total rat's nest. It's all totally debauched. You really don't want to go anywhere near it. And this is why the phones like stop working after 2 years. Because no one wants to keep software updating them. Like not even the phones want to exist on this planet anymore. So basically you have to deal with either Apple, which is actually a like well-designed architecture, but it's super closed off, or Android, which is just horrible to develop for. So what I'd like to be able to do, ideally, is just crack the game open on my iPhone at any point during my day-to-day life, you know. And I've got 5 minutes. I'll play the game and see what it looks like. So I really want to have that in place. And the only way to be able to do that really is by using Apple's test flight thing, which I've never used before, but it'll be fine. And yeah, it is also 1:47 in the morning. I haven't been very organized today. So we've got entire builds of the engine as well as builds of the actual game in place. And the first time I got this working, I like had a massive freak out. Yes, open it. Okay. Bang. Yay! Woo! Oh, here it is running on my little Mac Mini. It's also running my recording at the exact same time. Oh, this is actually quite a momentous day. The game has never run on this machine before, even though it spent all this time recording the development of the game. Yeah. It's like moderately performant. It's even got that thing where like when you download it and you double click on it, it like brings up that window that's got the like drag it into the applications folder thing. Like, oh, it's amazing. I love it. And then aside from getting macOS to work, iOS is still like work in progress, but it's getting there. And yeah, I would love to have test flight uploads in place by next week. That would be cool. And also there's a pretty serious issue with iOS right now where the game just kind of crashes after a few moments. So rip for that. So that stuff will all get fixed in good time. So we'll see. And in the meantime, I need to go to bed. So see you in the next video.